I'm Harry Rock, and welcome to another edition of the Westfield Council on Aging Presents. This is a special collaborative effort with Tina Gorman, Executive Director of the Westfield Senior Center, and Pete Coles, who is the producer and chief engineer of WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15. Our topic today is elder law education, and my guest on Zoom with me is attorney Mary Pyer Powers. And Mary, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. For the purpose of our viewers, you'll notice our background is a little different. We have another show being produced right now in the studio, so I am just in one of the side offices, so pardon the background here. But we are excited to have Mary with us. We'll be discussing the Massachusetts Bar Association's Elder Law Education Project. And Mary Pyer Powers, who is a practicing attorney in West Springfield. She is a volunteer, works as a volunteer for the Massachusetts Bar Association in helping with elder law education. So again, Mary, thanks for going on Zoom for us. I know we were supposed to be in person, but Pete's got a number of other shows that got in our way. So in order to keep our same time frame, we decided to do it via Zoom. But this will work just fine, and we're excited to have you. So I always like to get started by introducing my guest to our viewing audience and kind of give them a sense of who you are, where you went to college, how you got interested in being an attorney. And I'm guessing that you specialize. I don't know you because I haven't met you before, but guessing that you specialize in elder law and kind of your interest in that. So just a little bit about your background and kind of bring us up to where we are right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me on this program. I would love to have been in person, but Zoom also works. And that's one of the advantages, if we can say that, of COVID, is having the ability to reach a lot of people by Zoom.
Oh,
I am an attorney. I am in West Springfield. My firm is called Powers Law Group. I practice with my husband and my son.
Wow.
They do primarily real estate, and I do estate planning, estate settlement, elder law, guardianships, conservatorships. So I've been doing this for, I hate to say, almost 30 years, but I truly love what I do. I love meeting the people I work with, and it's a wonderful service. The program that Mass Bar Association puts together is in conjunction with the Massachusetts Elder Law Attorneys, MassNALA, and it's a great organization of people who work to bring better benefits and to bring forward the issues that elders have to deal with on a regular basis. With that, the Mass Bar Association puts together a guide, and I would encourage you to talk to Tina at the Senior Center, see if there are any guides available. This year's guide has a lot of information on powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, what to take into consideration if you're making healthcare decisions during COVID. So that's kind of a summary of what is in the guide this year.
So the elder law education project, is that something new, or is that something that's ongoing year after year after year?
Oh, it's been in existence. I'm just going to check my notes to see if it says. It's been in existence. I've done this probably for at least 10 years. So I'm going to say it's been in existence for a very long time. And they do the program every year. They reach out to the different senior centers or councils on aging and let them know that there are attorneys available. They provide or produce these guides, and they send them to the directors. And actually, this is the 13th year that they've done this. And so it's an ongoing educational project that the Bar Association started and is working with MassNALA now.
And so as I was looking this up last night as I was trying to prepare for this interview, we're the Massachusetts chapter of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. Is that right? Yes. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. That's why we say MassNALA.
Okay, so that's where MassNALA comes from. Yes. And then any idea how long that's been in existence?
Mass NALA has been in existence, I want to say, for at least 20 years, because I've been a
Oh,
part of
wow.
Mass NALA for a long time. Yes, and I
Wow.
think that over the years it's grown. We have a wonderful collection of attorneys. We have a listserv or a forum that elder law attorneys can communicate on. And there is a website. If you look up Mass NALA, you can actually get to the website and find attorneys who are associated with Mass NALA, which might help you find an attorney that you want to work with when you're dealing with these sensitive issues.
That's really, really interesting. And so I did spend some time looking at the 2022 Elder Law Education Guide. It was really interesting. Tremendous amount of information in there, well organized, well documented, and something that I would certainly encourage all of our viewers to get their hands on, either if there are copies, hard copies at the Westfield Senior Center, or just simply go online. And I'm trying to remember now where I found it. So what would they look up to go online to find that? I was looking at, I think I went to the Massachusetts Bar Association and looked up.
I believe you can look up community services at massbar.org, and you should be able to find information on the guide.
Right. But the guide, it laid itself right out. It was very easy to scroll through. You have an opening statement, and then there was a table of contents, and then you just kind of work your way through section by section.
Right.
But it was very,
if you try to read it in one sitting, you're going to be a little overwhelmed. You have to take it in parts.
There was a lot in there, I will admit.
There is an awful lot of valuable information in the guide.
Yeah. One of the things I picked up on, which I thought was interesting, and, I am now, as you can tell by the color of my hair and the lack of it on top of my head, I am now in that age group, but they talk in the guide about the fact that the labels, how we label ourselves of elder, elderly, and senior, those are discouraged labels, and that we should be using the label older adults, which is considered to be more friendly and acceptable as people age, which I thought was interesting. Is that something new?
Well, I think that many areas have been trying to work on it to become more age friendly, dementia friendly. It was I would say that I used to work with the director on the Council on Aging here in West Springfield, Lori Cassidy, and she really pushed for an age friendly environment. And I know that in Westfield, Tina works in the same direction, and the whole purpose is to take away the misnomer that when you get to be a certain age, you're elderly, and elderly has a connotation to it that you can't do things. And just because we're getting older doesn't mean that we should be restricted in anything that we do. So that's been a move that's been going on for a while.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I'll disclose I'm 70 now, just turned 70, and that number scares me. The 60s, okay, I can live with that, but you hear 70, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, the years are mounting up faster than I can accept here. And I realize that I'm now starting to move away from being a young senior or a young older adult, and now moving more into the middle range here. But there is certainly a connotation when people think, with the word senior or elderly, that you're really not capable of anything anymore, and you're at the tail end of your life, and which isn't true at all.
No.
Older adults are very, very productive, very active, and living high quality of life really well into their 90s in a lot of cases now.
Absolutely.
So we shouldn't be labeling ourselves into something that makes us sound like we're frail and ready for a nursing home.
I think, Harry, you'll also notice too, I'm in the Council on Aging in West Springfield, and one of the concerns or one of the issues that we talk about is the changing demographics. A lot of people used to retire when they were 65, or they retired when they were 62. Today, most of us work until we're in our 70s, and Sometimes it might be because you have to, but the other thing is working keeps you busy, it keeps you active. So you'll, in a lot of the Council on Aging, there's conversations about what you can do. I mean, people don't want to go to a senior center, but if they can go to a Council on Aging or a center that has activities, not just during the day, because we do work, but maybe activities that are going to occur towards the end of your workday or in the evening. And, so a lot of your centers are having, exercise rooms. They're trying to adjust their programming to adapt to our changing world. And, and again, many of us, as we are aging, I don't look at age. I never have. I don't think about it. And so my interest, people think of a senior center and they think of you going to play bingo. Most of your Council on Aging, they do so much more. I mean, there is your traditional, if you need help, you need care, these centers, the Councils on Aging provide a tremendous amount of support. But then to reach out to people who are our age, they're changing their programs and they're trying to adjust to the changing demographics. So we're very fortunate that we have these Councils on Aging that are aware of the changing demographics to match our feelings and changes.
You're very true. You're very right on that. As I think about our own Westfield Senior Center, our own Westfield Council on Aging, with Tina Gorman, she's done a phenomenal job with the programming that she offers. It's very diverse. It's interesting.
Yep.
It isn't just about, the traditional, let's, do a little woodworking and paint a little painting or whatever, but they're active, they're going places, they're doing things.
Right.
And I've had opportunity to be down there to help with different things that she's been doing, and just a really vibrant group. It's really fun to be around them, and they have a lot of energy, and you gain a lot of energy yourself from being around them. So your point, absolutely. Let's talk about the guide itself. So I was looking at that last night. I'm just going to run through some of the topics that I saw, but I think that we should kind of cover some of them. But there was the COVID-19 checklist and key resources. There's the use of a healthcare proxy. I didn't get into it, but there was one section that talks about important questions and answers for older adults. The Veteran Affairs, financial benefits, which certainly a lot of our older adults are veterans. Community Medicaid benefits, reverse mortgages, Medicare, what you need to know, long-term care insurance, homestead and life insurance, and what to consider when planning for retirement. Really diverse topics.
Yes. Can
you talk about some of the topics there and what people can find in there and why this is such a valuable resource to them?
Sure. So one of the issues, obviously, after coming off of a 2-year plus pandemic, one of the big concerns that some of my clients had when you're doing your healthcare proxy is what do you need to know about those decisions? Do your agents need to know? And in the beginning of the pandemic, there was a concern that people who were older weren't going to be put on ventilators because, the younger people might have a better chance of survival, which is not really a positive medical tactic to take, especially if you had a parent who was in that situation. But really, after everything we've been through, I think healthcare proxies are very important. It's important to have a conversation with your agent, who is the person who's going to make medical decisions for you when you cannot do so, about what your quality of life is. What do you want that person to do for if there's a period where you are perhaps in a coma or you are on life support, and so conversations with your healthcare agents is really, really important. And I think nothing bears that home more than the COVID pandemic we've been through. So there's some considerations in there. There's really a good conversation about what the healthcare proxy is compared to a lot of people now use the MOLST form. So a healthcare proxy can be done with your doctor. It can be done with your attorney. And when I do a healthcare proxy, I usually incorporate a living will. Living wills aren't legal in
Mm.
Massachusetts, but it is a statement that says, listen, if something happens, I want my healthcare agent to make the decision to keep me on life support or to take me off. So that opens up a conversation with your healthcare agent. The DNR, which is a do not resuscitate, or the MOLST, which stands for Medical Orders of Life-Sustaining Treatment. It's a mouthful, but that's kind of where there's a little bit of a checklist. So it's not pure black and white. It's saying to your healthcare providers, well, if this situation happens, I want you to do this, or if this situation happens, I want you to do this. There is a comment section. In the comment section, you can say that while I'm picking these blocks, my healthcare agent will have the final say, because you know what you might say for today may not be the same in 6 months or a year, which brings home the point that when you have something that is purely black and white, it's really important to have conversations on an ongoing basis to review what your choices are. So there's some of that discussion in here and what to take into consideration, which I think is very valuable.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah.
the beginning. There's also a good summary of probate. People often think that if you do a will, then it means that you don't have to go through probate, but that's not the case. The will is basically saying, if I pass away and I have assets that aren't joint name or that don't have a beneficiary, these are the people that I want to get it, or these are the charities that I want to get it. You do the will, you're naming somebody who's going to actually take care of distributing out those properties and making sure your bills are paid. But it goes through probate. The person you name in your will has no authority to do anything unless they file the will at probate and the request has been granted, basically, or the petition has been approved and you receive what's called a letter of authority. So there's a little bit of a discussion in there. So in the beginning, there's lots of brief discussions on important terms that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's a complex issue. You know, just the whole question of wills. I know that when my wife and I retired, we really didn't have a full will. We just had a simple one that said, okay, when I die, everything goes to Ann. When Ann dies, everything comes to her.
Right.
And so as soon as we retired, we realized, okay, we're now of that age where we've got to start thinking about the fact that we have less life in front of us than we have behind us, and we need to have a plan. And so we consulted with an elder law attorney here in Westfield, and she did a magnificent job laying out everything that we wanted, where it's going to go, how it's going to happen, what triggers, you know, the kind of things that go on. In your experience, are they taking care of that aspect of their life well in advance, or are people delaying getting those wills put together until they get closer to the end of their life?
I find I have kind of a diverse practice. So I do find that there's younger people, you know, maybe who have children who are doing their estate planning, and they want to make sure if something happens to both of them, that there's a will in place and possibly a trust for the benefit of the children. But I would say doing real planning, planning for long-term care, that's something that most of us wait until we are older. You know, when you do long-term care planning, you're talking about, you know, tough decisions. As far as estate planning goes, I would say that a good number of people will get their documents done. It's a matter of how often they review them.
Yeah,
and
right.
I think that you can get your documents done. And for a lot of people, you do your documents and you wait 20 or 30 years, you know, because they're done and you feel good. But over that 20 or 30 year span, lots has changed. Lots has gone, not just because of the law, but also in your families. So it's one thing to do your documents. It's another thing to follow up on a regular basis, to have them reviewed, to make sure there hasn't been any changes in your life or in the laws.
You know, that is a great point. I was just thinking about this the other day, because it's been, like I said, I'm 70. We probably did this when Ann and I are the same age, so when we were both 65. And I was just thinking about the fact that, okay, it's been 5 years since we've sat down with the attorney, and I said, you know, probably should schedule a time just to remind ourselves of what we had decided 5 years ago to do, because you know, our perspective in life and our experiences and where we are with our situation could be a little bit different than it was when we were doing it back then. How often do you recommend going back to an attorney and taking a look at your documentation and what your original plan was to see if it does need any adjusting?
I usually suggest every 3 to 5 years as you get older. You know, when you're younger, unless there's a major family change
Right.
or something going on in your life. But as we get older, I think it's really important that you look every 3 to 5 years. And one of my not so favorite stories is when I first was practicing, I had a young man who came to me who was the agent as a power of attorney for his parents. Now, back, you know, years ago, a power of attorney is 1 page long. It was very brief, very short. And now you can have a power of attorney that's 8 pages because laws have changed. If there's not a power in your document, then you can't do anything. And this young man brought in a very simple 1 page power of attorney, and a bank would not accept it because it was old and because it was, you know, on 1 page. They were like, there's not enough in here. And instead of coming to me first, the young man got very upset and he ripped up the power of attorney, said, well, what's this good for? And the bottom line is a power of attorney is good regardless of how old it is. What you may need to do is do an affidavit that says that it's still good. The bigger question is, because of changes in the law, because of, you know, lawsuits perhaps that have, you know, restricted or said, geez, that power wasn't given in the power of attorney, you let them do it, it wasn't intended. You're better off. You may not be able to use that very simple power of attorney to do what you want to do because the powers aren't specific in there. So that's why it's important to review because of these subtle changes that may happen and that may not have been anticipated when you did your power of attorney.
Yeah, really interesting. So here's a question for you. So let's say, you know, you go in and you set up your will and do all your documentation with an attorney like yourself. Then you're going through life and you pass away. What triggers the release of that will and the documentation that's on file?
So when you pass away, the individual who's named as your personal representative, which is the new name for executor, is really the only one who has the authority to request the release. Now, I don't always keep originals in my office. It becomes cumbersome if you have a lot of originals. I keep copies. I encourage my clients to keep their originals in someplace safe. But if they can't find the original and I've got the copy, then I can only release my copy to the individual who's named as the personal representative in the documents. And then once that individual is appointed, then he or she would have the ability to request the file.
Okay, so it's the, and I like that. So I just learned something. So the term executor is not a common term anymore. It's now personal representative.
Right. Well, what Massachusetts passed, I believe in 2012, was the Massachusetts Uniform Probate Code. And the purpose of that, you know, we're a much more mobile society. So some states had executor, executrix, administrator, administratrix. Other states had personal representative. And so people get confused. The purpose is to make it more uniform so that the language is clear, you know, and so personal representative is you know, it's gender neutral and it's becoming more universal.
Right, right. So let's go back to the elder law education guide. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously a lot of legislation out there protecting seniors, older adults. I should be using the word senior, older adults, make sure I'm now complying with the terminology. And, you know, I think that what we're saying is that we strongly recommend that people work their way through this guide to address questions and answers that they may not have even thought about or may not be aware of, that there's a lot of information in here.
I think for all of us as we age, one of the biggest concerns is what happens if we need nursing home care or we can't take care of ourselves. Where do you get that care? Do you get that care? Is the only place to get that care a nursing home, which, you know, historically you were either able to stay home or you had to go to a nursing home. A lot of individuals are not nursing home ready, and more individuals would prefer to stay home if at all possible, especially given the pandemic where the restrictions on visiting your loved ones in nursing homes was so restrictive. So as you age, you know, it's important to know, okay, if I want to stay home, are there programs available that will allow me to be able to stay home with some care in my house? And there are more and more programs. Massachusetts is trying to pass a home and community-based waiver where it would make it easier, more financially agreeable to be able to stay in your home for that care. You may not have care 24/7, but you can get a good chunk of your care to be able to remain in your home with some assistance from your family. You know, there's programs for individuals who go to assisted living. The idea with assisted living is you can live in a facility, you're going to, you know, pay, they take wonderful care of you, you're independent, but if you need assistance, they're there. And then there's the nursing home. So it's important to know what assistance is available as you go through those different pockets or levels of care that's needed.
Yeah, and I just want to remind our viewers that in March, the episode that we did for this Westfield Council on Aging Presents series was on the topic of when is the right time to leave your home, when you should be starting to consider, you know, assisted care, nursing homes, that type of thing.
Right.
And if you just go online and Google Westfield Council on Aging Presents, you should be able to find that episode. But it was the March episode that we taped for that. So
that's a great, that had to be a great topic because it's always a concern. The other fact that I think is really important, it's very hard to, if your parents don't have this conversation with you, it's very hard as the child to bring these issues up because the parent's perception may be that you are implying that they can't take care of themselves or that you know, you feel as the child that they shouldn't be in their home. Some of my clients even get thinking that maybe the kid just wants their money. And so it's, you know, so it's hard to know when to have that conversation. I think the more we can educate our aging population, the better off we will be because we'll know that there are options out there and it's not so scary about what needs to be done. But it might also take the burden off of the children worrying about the parents and how to take care of them. So education is really an important step. And I think educating both your program really reaches out to the whole Westfield community. So you're going to reach children who have parents who are older, and you're going to reach out individuals who are aging and say, okay, well, what can we do? What positive steps can we do to move forward and be prepared? Because that's the whole idea, is you got to help people be prepared so it's not so scary. The worst thing is when there's an emergency and something happens, you're not prepared for it, and it's like, oh my heavens, what do we do now? Where do we go?
Yeah.
This guide will help. The Bar Association can help. Mass NALA can help. So there's resources out there, and certainly your councils on aging can help.
Yeah, you know, great points, Mary. Thank you for all of those. Number 10 on my list was what to consider when planning for retirement. I'm just curious, when, you know, throwing that statement out there, what to consider when planning for retirement. What is your sage advice to young older adults that are just starting to enter into their 60s, thinking about retirement at whatever age that might come? But what things should they be focusing on as they prepare themselves for retirement?
I would say first and foremost, you want to make sure you have powers of attorney, and you want to make sure you have healthcare proxies. The power of attorney is really important because you are, everybody wants to handle their own things as long as possible. What we don't know is when is that event going to occur that we can't handle our finances. Maybe you need temporary help handling finances. Maybe it's permanent. And if you don't have a durable power of attorney in place, then your family or your friend who's going to act as your agent has to file paperwork with the probate court to be appointed a conservator. The conservator takes time to go through the court. It's more costly because you've got to pay usually an attorney. You're going to be paying the filing fees. It's public because something gets published in the paper. So number one, in my opinion, is to make sure you have a general durable power of attorney. Your power of attorney, typically when you sign it, it goes into effect, which means that if you have an agent that is a little squirrely, you may not be able to trust that individual. A lot of folks do not want to give somebody that authority now while you're fine and healthy. One option that is available is you can do what's called a springing power of attorney, which means that your power of attorney would only go into effect if you have a statement from your doctor that you're unable to handle your finances. The difficulty with that is being able to get a statement from your doctor. And on top of that, if your disability could be temporary, then your doctor's statement may only last a certain period of time. And each time you need to use that power of attorney, you may need to get an updated statement. Certainly, if you have a permanent incapacity, then the need for that would be diminished. The other option is, most of the time, the power of attorney, you need an original to transact business. So if you do a power of attorney that doesn't need the hoop of getting the attorney, you keep your originals, near and dear to your heart, someplace safe, but someplace that your agent would be able to access if there was an emergency. So powers of attorney are very important. They're very broad. And the individual that you name essentially is going to act as a fiduciary. He or she has the obligation to handle your finances and to handle your assets as if he or she were for you and what is in your best interest, what you would want done.
Yeah,
Power of attorney would be number one. Healthcare proxy, of course, is number two, because we don't know what's going to happen. Is there going to be a medical event and we can't make a decision? We want somebody to step in and make that decision.
Right.
And then number three, as you did your will. You updated your will. You looked at your estate plan. You want to make sure that estate plan is in order. So those are the three financial documents that I would first recommend. And then the idea is meeting with a financial advisor. Do you meet with a financial advisor who handles your finances? There are now some financial advisors who are fee for service. So if you wanted to say, okay, this is what I have for assets right now, how much am I going to need as I go further? You have to look at what your fixed expenses are. And then, certainly when you work, your wardrobe is different than if you stay home. What are the expenses that you may not have when you're retired that you incur? How many times do you go out to eat? How many times to go to lunch? Most of us don't want that to all change just because you've retired, but you have to look at your budget. So looking at your budget would be another factor that needs to be taken into consideration as you get into, as you're looking to prepare to retire. Certainly right now, the economic market that we're going through makes it a little bit scary if you're in if you're getting ready to retire. And that's why working with a financial advisor and having that advisor know what your horizon is. If your horizon was 3 to 5 years and the market was going as crazy it is, well, hopefully your financial advisor is working with you either to encourage you to stay steady or to make some minor changes so that you are going to be more secure as you go forward. So those are items that definitely need to be reviewed and looked at.
Great points. I think that hopefully for older adults, they have a lot of the information that they need around Medicare, Medicaid. That's really very easy to get a hold of. And again, for our viewers, if you have questions on that, get down to the Westfield Senior Centers, because I'm sure there's documentation that's available there. You know, one of the things we see on television right now, and I could tell, you know, it's funny, when you watch commercials on television, you can tell what age group is really the defining age group that they're trying to reach out. Because when we were young, you know, it was about concerts or, you know, things that related to when you were young. Now it's all about reverse mortgages and Medicare. And, you know, I said, oh my gosh, I'm looking at what the focus of commercials are on television. I'm thinking, yeah, the baby boomers have definitely moved into that time frame. But, you know, the term reverse mortgages has always confused me a little bit. And there's an awful lot of commercialization right now on television urging people to do this. What is your take on that? Is that something that people should be considering, or is that something they should stay away from?
So, you know, I think all of us, as we watch these commercials, both for Medicare insurance and for reverse mortgages, you're having these stars say, "Hey, do this.
Right,
this is a great
right.
plan."
Trust me.
When it comes to the reverse mortgages, I think you have to be very careful. You have to really understand what the purpose is. And I've had clients who have taken them for different reasons. And one woman took a reverse mortgage. She had an aging home. She was getting older herself. She had a built-in pool. She was concerned that if there was major repairs, a new roof, you know, something with the pool, that she wouldn't be able to afford out of her income stream and her savings. So it was really there as an emergency. It was there to pay for that item that wouldn't fit into her budget. And that's probably a good use of a reverse mortgage. And we'll talk about the what really happens with the reverse mortgage. Another individual, a couple, took the reverse mortgage out because they needed it to live on. They couldn't afford their house. They couldn't afford the expenses. And the unfortunate thing, God bless you, the unfortunate thing about that is as you draw down the equity in your home, at some point, you may have taken all the equity out of your home so that you don't have the money anymore to live on. You don't have the money anymore to pay your real estate taxes. You don't have the money to make sure your bills are paid. And then what do? You're basically forced to sell your home. I mean, they won't force you to sell your home, but you have no money to maintain it anymore. No money to pay your bills. So if you're pulling it out, depending on the age that you are, you're pulling the equity out of your home for the reverse mortgage to live on, you need to have a very careful budget, because you could have that income stream for 5, 10, maybe 15 years. And then when that income stream isn't there anymore, what do you do? So
yeah, that's a great point.
A difficult situation. And then I had another client who took it really for no other purpose than he might need it. And again, the first and the last situations are kind of a well-managed use of a reverse mortgage. It worries me when these commercials say that you can use it to maintain your standard of living, because it's not a never-ending pot of money. Unless your house keeps going up in value and they keep increasing your pool of money. But you know, there's no guarantee. And of course, the longer you live, it's possible that that equity runs out.
Right.
And for individuals who don't understand, the reverse mortgage is when you take the money out, you're not paying the money back like you do with a regular mortgage. What happens is the mortgage and the interest, what you've taken out and your interest accumulates over the years, and that interest compounds. And then when you go to sell the house or you've passed away, your home will get sold and the mortgage company gets paid first. And then if there is any money left over, it would go to the heirs of your estate.
Oh, that's interesting. So the mortgage companies are always getting their fair share, if not more.
And you really have to look at how long you might need that money and think of compound interest. You know, over the years, that balance is going to grow. And there are some children who really don't want any equity out of that house. They really want their parents to live. And if it means that they take a reverse mortgage out and they can live comfortably and not worry, that's great. It's again, then goes back to your budget to make sure that you don't rely on it so much that you could possibly run out of money. And then if you do, most of us would like to be able to sell our homes and use that money either to live in an assisted living apartment or but to have flexibility. And so it's important that you don't outlive not only your money, but the money from the reverse mortgage.
That's a great point. And kind of what I'm getting out of this is the fact that if you're now relying on the reverse mortgage, you've really got to take a look at your finances, because that is not an endless pot of gold, so to speak, that there's a finite number of years that you're going to be able to pull money out of whatever equity you have in there.
Right.
And then when it runs out, you are in trouble.
Right.
That is a great point. So yeah, I see where you're going with that. Very interesting. What is homestead and life estate? That was a topic, and I couldn't even come up with what that might be.
Okay, two very different things. A homestead, so every homeowner is entitled to homestead rights in their home. In Massachusetts, the first $125,000, let me back up. Generally what you do for homestead is you prepare a paper that gets filed at the Registry of Deeds that says, okay, I own this home, it's my primary residence, and it means that anybody who sues you can't take the equity or take your home from you. You can still get sued, but they can't take the equity from you.
Okay.
If you owe the IRS, the Department of Revenue, or you go into a nursing home, the homestead is not going to give you any protection there. Okay. For some individuals who are buying their homes and they don't have a lot of equity, there's an automatic exemption that protects the equity up to $125,000. So you may not have filed a homestead, but it's important that as your equity grows, you make sure that there's a homestead on record. And if you e-file, it's $40. It's a very inexpensive way of protecting your home. If you have a mortgage, obviously your mortgage is going to come first. But it really is designed to protect the equity in your home from most of your creditors. The life estate, that is typically a term that's referenced to a deed that may get prepared as you're looking at your long range plans. So some parents might have their home and they say, I want to live here for the rest of my life. I want to make sure it passes to my children without having to go through probate. I also, if possible, want to try to protect it from long-term care costs. So I would do a deed transferring the property to my children, and I would retain the right to live in the home so that it's my home while I'm alive. If I'm entitled to any type of abatement or benefit through the city or town, generally having that life estate is going to be still available to you. The children own what is called a remainder. And it's kind of an oxymoron because technically the children own the home subject to your right to live there. Okay, so even though during your lifetime it's yours, you have the children to be aware of their concern. So people will do that to protect it from a nursing home. The look back for nursing home transfers is 5 years. It's a very strict 5-year look back. If the asset has been transferred and 5 years hasn't gone by, then you hope your children will give it back to you. So if there's any other planning that can be done, that it gets done. With a life estate, you can, as the homeowner, own the property. The remainder interest can go into an irrevocable trust, but that brings all kinds of other issues, and it has to be done very carefully so that Mass Health can't reach the asset anyways. Also very strict 5-year look back. So as you're deciding what kind of plan you're going to do, it's important to know what you have available to pay for a nursing home in that 5-year period of time. There's many advantages to the life estate deed transfer. As I said, it's ease of transfer if you pass away. The children's creditors, there's always a concern because it's not their primary residence. The concern is, can their creditors reach the property? And there may be some circumstances where the creditor can, but generally during your lifetime, your child's creditor can always sue them and put a lien against it, but they typically cannot force you out of the house. So those are all considerations that need to be taken or to be thought of as you are looking to determine whether or not you want to transfer your home to your children and reserve a life estate.
You know, Mary, as I sit here listening to you, and you are a wealth of information, I will tell you, I really have really enjoyed listening to you. I learned an awful lot. I realize, too, how much I have yet to learn. How do people, what's the best way for people to really prepare themselves? You know, is it just reading the document? Are there workshops available? As I listen to you, I could listen to you all day. But how do people really start addressing the need to be aware of what they've got to anticipate and prepare for as they age?
So I would say that, you know, first and foremost, this guide that was put together by the Mass Bar Association, and again, they do something every year. They try to vary the topic a little bit, but obviously Elder Law Month is the concern. Your councils on aging, they have tremendous programs, and as you're doing in Westfield, these programs are being recorded so that somebody can probably look at your your directory and see what programs are there. I know here in West Springfield, our director, Sarah Long, has been trying to work with the library, and they had like a series of planning, whether it's Medicare, Social Security, insurance as you get ready to retire. So I think reading is one thing, but I think going to the seminars that are offered are really important because it gives you an opportunity maybe to ask questions. So you read, you go to these seminars, and then you educate yourself over time as time goes on.
Yeah. Okay. And is there a 1-800 number, or is there a place where people can get advice or answers to questions that they might have?
I don't think there's any free, like a 1-800 number that's global.
Okay.
There are, like in my estate planning practice, I will spend 15 minutes to a half hour with somebody going through some of these, the documents, why the documents are important to have. There's, the difficulty is when you get into more hard, concrete planning, it's hard to find individuals that will do that for no charge because you're really trying to sit down and give somebody advice. But you can certainly reach out to attorneys. If you don't know an attorney, as I said, you can look at the Mass NALA directory. They have attorneys who do elder law in the area. If you're not sure you want an elder law attorney and just want an estate planner, you can call the Hampden County Bar Association. They have a referral service. They can give you names. And then the other thing that, is really sometimes word of mouth is the best. So if you've got questions, you ask, find out who's, if somebody went to a seminar, if somebody spoke to an attorney, if somebody spoke to a financial advisor. So asking your friends and family is also a good source because you'll know if the person is approachable, because obviously whoever you work with, you want to be able to have a rapport. Yeah,
no, I think that's really, really important. I know that there are attorneys here in Westfield that certainly specialize in this topic. I'm going to give you a chance to promote yourself. Where are you located, and how can people call you if they want to talk to you in more detail?
So I am located in West Springfield on Route 20. I'm at 680 Westfield Street. And my phone number is 413-781-9659. We also have a website. You can look at the Powers Law Group website, and it's not group spelled out, it's powerslawgrp.com. And we do have a question service associated with our website. So if you have some questions, you can put them out there. I try very hard to get back to people within a couple days on the website, but it's hard. And sometimes what we'll do is set up a phone conference for a 15-minute or 20-minute conversation just to see if I can help people from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, I could, like I said, I could sit here for another 2 hours, but I'm sure you've got clients that are just waiting to pick your brain with all the things we've talked about. But Mary Pyer Powers, practicing attorney in West Springfield, and a volunteer with the Massachusetts Bar Association when it comes to elder law education. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really interesting. You are well informed, which means we're much better informed as a result of this. And I want to thank you for the work that you do working with older adults, because that population group is certainly growing. And if there's anything that we need, it's as we approach, not too soon, but the tail end of our lives, we need to be aware of what we're facing and the point of being organized about it. And if there were some points that I'm taking away from this, it's the fact that people need to start, if you haven't already done this, think about your power of attorney, think about your healthcare proxy, create a will, meet with a financial advisor so that you know what you've got to live on. And certainly this whole question of reverse mortgages, you want to address that really carefully before you do anything on that. And then really also look at your budget. What can you afford? Where's your income stream coming from? Is it sustainable for the number of years that you think you're going to live? And think about your lifestyle and the level of funding or spending that you're engaging in. And there may come a point where you've got to start cutting back a little bit. But
can I just add one?
Yes, absolutely.
So one of the things, we're talking about, getting ready to retire. One of the biggest questions is, what kind of insurance do you do? Do you do Medicare? Do you do Medigap? Do you do a supplemental? And the councils on aging have wonderful, they're called SHINE counselors. And I forget what the acronym stands for. It's like Senior Health Insurance. I'm not sure what the N and the E stand for, but they are a wealth of knowledge. So if you're trying to retire and you are, if you try to read, do I do Medicare? Do I do Medigap? As we're talking about the commercials with the stars who are telling you to get, Medicare Advantage, it's really important that you look at what your options are. And I would strongly encourage you to make an appointment. It does take sometimes months because these SHINE counselors are well sought after, but it is well worth the wait. So start early on that as well.
Yeah, great point. And the other thing that I would say as we start to close out this program is go online and simply Google Elder Law Education Guide. That is, I was on that last night. It's a huge resource, an awful lot of information, answers a lot of the questions that you may have, and will give you some at least heightened awareness of things you should be focusing on, thinking about. And if you feel you need more insightful conversation around any of those, then find an attorney that specializes in that so that you can get that information. And then finally, many of our older adults here in Westfield, you're well acquainted with the Westfield Senior Center. Go down there. They have a lot of resources. You may even find this guide there. I don't know for sure, but Tina Gorman and her staff do an amazing job. So once again, Mary Pyer Powers, thank you so much. You have been just a joy to speak with, truly enlightening when it comes to this topic, an awful lot of information, and I can tell that you know your business very, very well. I want to say special thanks to Pete Coles, who is our WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15 manager and producer, for his help and support to make this show possible. And also to Tina Gorman, Executive Director of the Westfield Senior Center, for providing the opportunity to create these shows. So on behalf of Pete Coles, Tina Gorman, I'm Harry Rock, and welcome to another edition to the Westfield Council on Aging Presents on WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next month on the next show. Thanks.